Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Richard Hughes, and I wanted to go over some information we recently shared at a parent night concerning our budget, but more importantly, concerning the poor funding that Frontier receives, mostly from the state level. I like to thank the PTA, especially Daniel Thompson from the Pinehurst PTA, Patrick Boyle, our board president, David Pokulski, vice president from the board for helping, and also Mark Gillen. So let me dive into this and just give you a little bit of background information. And we can talk a little bit about it here. So what you see here is our rollover budget from 1819 to 1920, what our current budget is. And the reason there's a lot of numbers here, but the key piece here is budgets are broken into three components: administrative, program, and capital. The most important part of any school budget is the program component. Our administrative component only comes out to be 7.9%. That includes our instructional people, instructional administration, all of our principals, and all those great people that we have. And as you can see, it seems like big numbers, but in reality, Frontier has been one of the most efficient, and at times the most efficient, school district in all of New York State as it relates to its administration. Generally, it's us and Lancaster who keep popping into the top numbers there. But this is the slide I really want to show you. Our program, we spend 80%, almost 80% of our budget on programs. That's everything from regular education to special ed, extracurriculars, to sports, to all those kind of activities. The capital component includes things like facilities, maintaining our grounds, maintenance pieces, things like that. Some of the fringe benefits that are related there, and that piece is almost 13%. So 80% of our budget, which is really good, comes to student programs. I just want to give you an idea of some a map of New York State. I'm sure you're well aware of it. And we spend, if you look around all these schools in orange, we spend, no matter which way you calculate it, one of the fewest in New York State in per pupil spending. And you can see there's a lot clustered right around Buffalo over here. Quite interesting how that plays out. But if we dive a little further, so we look at Frontier spending, and there's different ways to calculate per student spending. But our spending that was proposed for this past year, or this current year, is 86 million. When you divide that up, it comes out to be 18,000 per student. Now that seems like a really big number. But when we start comparing those numbers, just remember with 18,000, we start comparing to other school districts, you might be a little surprised. And the other red highlight here is the number of students, 4,700. But if we remember the 18,000 figure, and we go to a neighbor, say Orchard Park, they have almost $20 million more they spend on their budget. They spend almost $3,000 more a student, and they have a few more students than us, a couple hundred more. But in the grand scheme of things, Erie County schools are shortchanged by the state budget on a yearly basis. We'll dive a little more into that. Clarence has a very similar budget than us. They're spending a little bit more than us, about $1,500 more, but they have about 400 students less than us. So why is this a big issue? So it's a big issue for Erie County overall. Erie County schools have been neglected over and over again. But in Erie County schools, you can quickly find Frontier as it comes to revenue. So this is state aid, which is in the dark green here. And real property taxes are in the light blue down this column. And if you want to look for Frontier, just go to the bottom of the page. Frontier gets the least amount of revenue, receives the least amount of revenue from anybody else in Erie County. The average in Erie County is 20,000. We receive a little over 16. If I let that sink in for a second, we receive 16,000 per student. And Erie County is underfunded, but when you have districts who are, North Collins and Cheektowaga Sloan and some of the other ones out here that are spending well over even the Erie County average, up to 26,000 a student, that's $10,000 additional a student. But let's look at the spending. So if our revenue is 16.3, we're basically spending that. And if you look at other school districts, the same ones at the top, North Collins and Eden and Cheektowaga Sloan, spend most per student. We spend, again, the least per student. We're at the bottom of Lancaster. So the question about our budget is not that we spend too little. The reason we spend so little is because we have to. We don't get the funding from the state. So, imagine what we could do, say, just with an extra $1,000 a student. That would be, 4.7 million. Well, when we look at our class sizes, this is from 2017, the last data we have. So again, some districts spend a lot per student, like North Collins, and their class sizes are among the smallest. Well, we're right on the Erie County average. So if we wanted to reduce our class size further, we have 6th grade levels at an elementary building: kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So 6th grade levels per elementary building. Multiply that by 4 elementary buildings. That's 24 additional teachers we would need to hire, not even including the others that might need to be there as well too, aides and things like that. So new teacher costs between $60,000 and $75,000, including health and benefits and their salary. We're looking at $1.6 to $1.8 million. So even $500 more a student would get us $2.3 additional revenue. We could add a student. We could add, say, maybe languages and more art and music to our elementary school. We get other programs. So is this just an Erie County thing? Maybe it's just us. Maybe it's the whole state. So I'm going to pick on a district. I'm going to not pick on them, but use them as an example out of Nassau, down here on Long Island. They tend to forget I guess we exist out here. But if you look at Valley Stream, now Valley Stream is almost the exact same number of kids as us. 4,700 was us. Theirs is 4,637. Total proposed spending for 1920 was 121 million. Now remember, ours was 86. They're spending 26,000 per student, 8,000 more than we spend. Now the interesting piece is, it is more expensive downstate. Of course it is. I don't know if it's 8,000 students per kid more. I don't think that jives. But the other piece is they can also raise revenue very quickly in their property taxes. So if you look, they spend about $84 million in property tax. So the addition there is, about $37 million. That's about what we get in state aid. So they're getting almost the same amount in state aid as we get. So a wealthy school district is getting the same amount of state aid that we get. Now, interesting to compare the two, if you just looked at something like the academic programs, you can look on their website and see what they offer. And one thing I looked at was world languages. We offer French and Spanish, all the courses all the way through, and we offer one section of German 1. Alone for their school district, they have 5 different languages to choose from, level 1 all the way up through. So they have 5 languages to choose from, multiple levels, versus R2. It's because they get funding that they could clearly pay for themselves versus schools like us, especially us, 7th lowest spending in the entire state, don't get. So we look at our budget. Property taxes, as I said, are about half or a little less than half of our budget. State aid comes in about 35, so about the same as Valley Stream gets, yet they're a wealthy school district. And this is the story over and over again. We're not getting our fair funding here in Frontier. That's why we spend the least in Erie County and why 7th least in the entire state. But here's some other school districts you can look at. I'd like to thank Danielle for helping out and pulling some great data. You can see other districts about our size. Corning City, they spend 6,000 more a kid. Scarsdale, almost double what we spend, yet they receive quite a bit of state aid as well. Not as much as we get, but receive quite a bit of state aid. So you can always pause this video, look at the numbers. Baldwin, 200 less kids than us, and they spend $11,000 more per student. So part of the reason is this foundation aid formula. Now, before you dive too many into all these numbers, I'll make it simple. The foundation aid formula was created in 2007 to create fair basic funding across the state. The formula has never been allowed to run the way it was supposed to. And now it's been tweaked and changed and altered many, many times. Well, there's about 300 school districts in the state that receive more aid than what the formula says they're supposed to receive. For districts like us, we have not received 1 year where we received more or what we were supposed to get in aid the entire time. So, when it first started, we were 7 million behind, started catching up, and then the gap elimination came, and we lost money, and we've never regained that. So for this current school year, the governor says we're getting about $400,000 in aid. What he's not telling everybody is he's merging all these different aid categories like transportation and BOCES and things into one. And then he also threw us $108,000 in community school aid that we have to use in specific purposes on new spending, not student programs, but community school aid for specific programs laid out by the state. When you take that money away, our actual new aid for this year is under $66,000. But if you total all this red up, here's where the big number comes in. Frontier's Falcons have been owed over the cumulative time of the foundation aid almost $100 million. I think just a couple million would be nice on average, but $100 million. And there's schools, wealthy schools that are much wealthier than us, who are actually overfunded, and actually some rural schools that are overfunded. But they have not had to make any of the choices the Frontier has had to make over the number of years, especially when the gap elimination occurred. So why is this kind of a big deal right now? Well, the New York State budget, our school budgets look like this. We've got to submit information. Our property taxes report card goes to state by April 23rd. The big thing, everybody gets to vote on May 15th. So please come out and vote. And if there is not a positive pass, any district that didn't have a positive pass on their vote has to re-vote in June. But for us, the big number is April 1st. That is the state budget deadline. So March is the most critical of all the months. But on top of it, advocating to all of our representatives at the state level is a huge, huge thing that has to happen throughout the year. So how do we do that? How do we build those relationships? How do we communicate? How do you communicate if you're not happy with how New York State is funding our schools, specifically here at Frontier, and how we're the 7th least spending in the entire state because of New York State's rules, including the property tax cap? Here's what you can do. If you got Twitter, tweet at the governor. Throw in things like Falcon Nation, Frontier Fair Funding. You can write or call. On the next slide, I'll give you the slide that has all the contact information out there and tell you who each of the people are if you're not sure who they are, and write them. Call. The cool thing is when you call, most likely the senator or assemblyman or the governor, they're not going to be answering their own phone. They have aides that do that. And the aides take down every single call that is made. So if you call, please give them a call and tell them, Frontier, why should we spend the least in the state when other schools are overfunded? Please direct the funding fairly to Frontier. And you can always sign up and stay in touch with us. We have a number of parents and community members who came out last Friday to do so. And we're going to keep these things going on year round. So the most important slide for all of you is this one. These are our representatives. Of course, we have our Governor Cuomo. Speaker of the Assembly is Carl Hasty. Assemblyman Ryan, who's our current member of the Assembly. The Assembly is Democratic controlled, but largely controlled by New York City. So it's important that we reach out not only him and the Speaker, but also reach out to Assemblyman Michael Benedetto, who is the Education Chair for the Assembly. He's based in the Hudson area out there. Kathy Hochul, please give the Lieutenant Governor a buzz. Let her know what's going on. She can also advocate for us. She's a Hamburg resident. Anything we can do to help. Our leader of the Senate, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, she can help with these pieces as well. Senator Jacobs, as you know, he's running for Congress. And then Assemblyman Ryan is running for his seat, but all these are critical. So the Senate is controlled by the Democrats currently right now as well, even though it's been Republican controlled for many, 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 many years, decades almost. So another person that's a key contact is Senator Shelley Mayer, who's the chair of the Education Committee. So hopefully this gives you a little overview of the challenges Frontier is facing and how unbelievably unfair we're being treated. Others may say that, but when you look at the numbers, we spend the least in Erie County, 7th least in the entire state, not because we want to, but because we have to. Our taxes go to the tax cap every year. And unless something changes in the state level, we can't offer the same kind of programs other districts similar to us and wealthier to us do, because they also get quite a bit of aid. Please don't hesitate to reach out. You can always reach me at our school phone or send me an email as well. And look forward to talking to you.